I was quite happy with Tyson's response or what he was saying in that video. He seems to be really bothered by the
Mhm.
Usyk defeat specifically, and those two targets we're going to talk about in a second, Usyk and Joshua. He really wants that third shot at Alexander. It seems to really stick in his craw, as the Americans would say, but it really seems to stick on his mind the fact that Usyk holds two defeats over him. And a lot of time when we talk about boxing, we talk about silk sheets, we talk about the desire, the hunger, going from a fire. This is a guy who saying all the right things of a man who really wants to avenge those two defeats that he sees as not legitimate defeats on his record, and wants that third bout with Alexander to prove to maybe himself and the world that he is the rightful winner of that rivalry between the two of them. So that's kind of, I think, a good sign in terms of Tyson's rhetoric and ambition and desire to return to the ring, that he's choosing that over the anti-Joshua fight, which is a fight that fans have wanted to see for many years. This isn't just a run-of-the-mill comeback for money or anything like that. This is a guy who's got real desire to prove something.
Yeah, you could see in that interview the frustration with the results against Usyk were there. You can see that it's something that he thinks about and has thought about since those defeats. So, as you say, if he was going to go for a sort of money-grabbing return, Anthony Joshua would be the only path, really. But the fact that he is focusing on Usyk shows that it's about much more than money. It's about the Fury legacy. It's about proving something. And I don't think Fury's had much to prove until those defeats. He came back in that first fight against Deontay Wilder and he had something to prove. He was overweight. He'd come back from some mental health issues and people didn't believe he was going to go out there and do what he did to Deontay Wilder. He proved a lot of people wrong there and he proved a lot of people wrong since then. But he's not had much to prove since those Wilder fights. He's had a couple of fights on the back of that and maybe sort of floated through them a little bit more than we would expect. But people are now doubting Tyson Fury. People don't believe that he can beat Oleksandr Usyk, and the evidence that we've seen in the ring suggests that as well. And when he's written off, maybe he's got that thing in the back of his head, that voice in the back of his head that says, I want to prove those people wrong. And I think that's probably the primary reason and the desire and the motivation for Tyson Fury coming back. And as you say, it's the right reason to come back, fighting Usyk to prove people wrong rather than coming back for the money in the Joshua fight.
I'm very happy to say, Josh, we have a strong and thriving 132 listeners in the chat. One of our most listened to or viewed shows currently right now. So please do make sure those 135 and more that are going to be jumping in. It's almost like you missed us. Hit the like button and we can get more people in here. Let's jump into the chat for the first round. Jump into the mosh pit. Axel says, shake my head. Next. Well, he's next due back in the ring very soon. April is the word, according to Tyson Fury's own mouth. So I was saying here, Thunder Road says, don't call it a comeback for Tyson Fury. Josh Green no longer has the kitchen in the background. Josh has moved place, if you didn't catch that. But is fit and firing. Custom System #1 on the rankings here with the crown on his head. The Gypsy King has the crown, or is looking to put that crown back on his head. Custom System says, good to see you in here. Cuss, a strong regular as well throughout the weeks, whether it be a busy period or not. Although the Furies are contradictory at times, he's an entertainer and good to have him back. However, do not jump the queue. You have to earn the Usyk fight. Fight Joshua, as neither have belts. There's an interesting point, Josh, that Custom System brings up, and I did ask Tyson Fury in the scrum. You would have heard it in the lead up 2 seconds out. We ditched the intro for those 2 scrums so you could catch up on that if you didn't see the news that Tyson Fury had broke about his return and his targets. I said to Tyson, look, the WBC have said to you, if you return to the ring as you maybe plan to do so, then you're going to be put in the #1 spot. And that gives you the opportunity to fight Oleksandr Usyk or Daniel Dubois. You get that opportunity that's been given to you. The boxing hardcore fans seem to want to say you got to earn that. Where do you stand on it with Tyson Fury, Josh?
Opinions. Obviously, Tyson has a a huge legacy within the sport, especially over the last few years. He's had those fights with Oleksandr Usyk where he's fallen short, and there are a number of contenders that probably are deserving of that next shot. Namely Joseph Parker, who's been in that position with the WBO for well over a year now. He's probably the man that a lot of people refer to as the number one contender, the man that should be in the ring with, well, the winner of the rematch between Usyk and Dubois. So for me, I would like to see Tyson Fury have at least one fight before he jumps in with Oleksandr Usyk. He's had those 2 losses to him. He hasn't really earned that third fight, in my opinion. I had those 2 results fairly clearly in favour of Oleksandr Usyk, and to jump back in with the Ukrainian would be a bit of a push for me. If he can go and defeat a top 5, top 6 heavyweight, then maybe we can start to talk about a trilogy fight with Usyk. If Usyk wants that fight, and if Usyk wants to continue fighting, I think that's something maybe that people aren't considering quite so much. Maybe Oleksandr Usyk goes and defeats Daniel Dubois. Maybe he loses to Daniel Dubois, and that Usyk-Fury trilogy fight isn't there to be offered anymore. What do we see from Tyson Fury if that fight isn't to be there? There's a lot of different situations that can occur, a lot of spinning plates in this scenario. But for me, I'd like to see Tyson Fury have at least another fight before a possible trilogy with Usyk.
So one of the things I had a little mini debate with Vidal Riley, Josh, and I want to ask you and the fans here too, is which fight you'd rather see more. And we'll move on to Tyson Fury's targets, and they're very clear. We've mentioned them here. They're Oleksandr Usyk and Anthony Joshua. Oleksandr Usyk seems to take precedence over Anthony Joshua because of how that defeat really kind of sticks to Tyson Fury. He's completely unhappy about it and feels like he didn't get a fair shake on the scorecards, as he has said as much in the scrums and to Turkey Al-Sheikh on that video call. And when I spoke to Vidal Riley, I said, look, which fight would you rather see? And I said to him, but the fight with Oleksandr Usyk, there were still 2 very high-level, high-caliber fights. We're talking elite of an elite level fight, a real good fight. You got action in there. You got hardcore boxing in there where it came to a chess match at points. You got that real full 360 scope of what boxing is. The Anthony-Joshua fight, yeah, sure, it's a rivalry that we want to see for many years, but it doesn't quite have the juice worth the squeeze as maybe it had a few years back. Am I silly in thinking that way? That not to say that I would rather see I'd rather see Fury and Usyk for the 3rd time over AJ. I'd still rather see that, but I'm saying it's still a brilliant affair, and I'm not too upset if I get Usyk Fury 3 first over Fury AJ.
Yeah, I don't think it holds quite the prestige that it once did with not having the belts on the line. When Fury had a couple of belts and Joshua was holding a world title as well, that's when the fight was really at its height for me. For 2 elites, 2 greats of recent years to have a fight, whether it be at Wembley Stadium, whether it be out in Saudi Arabia, to not have the belts on the line feels like a real shame in that fight. And it feels like we very much missed the boat with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. So I think Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk is probably a more grabbing fight, certainly for the hardcore boxing audience. But I certainly wouldn't complain if we got the Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua fight. There'd just be that sort of niggling feeling that we didn't get it 3, 4, 5 years ago, and we're getting it with no belts on the line. Unless by some miracle over the next 18 months, one of them is able to capture a world title.